Hey, what's up? My name is Chris, and welcome to Coding in Public. Today I want to show off just a small feature that you could implement in a site just like this. Let's say you've got a button here that goes to an anchor link further down on your page. When you click it, you want to jump down to that section. Now, the section I actually wanted to show you was this quotation, but you'll notice that my nav bar here is covering everything up. Now, by the way, if you're interested in how to apply a class like this using an intersection observer, I've done a video on that and I'll make sure to add that in the description. But as you jump to this anchor link, a couple of things are happening. Number one, all your text is being covered up. Number two, it's kind of a sudden experience. So there's a few things we can do with CSS and JavaScript to make it much better. Let's start with the CSS. So you're going to come in here first of all, and we can set something called a scroll behavior to smooth. Just with that one line of text, it's already a much better experience. If I click here, it'll now slowly kind of smooth down that way. Now, if you set scroll behavior to smooth, it's important to set a media query on any kind of animation on your site that looks at people's settings for preferring reduced motion. If they have preferred reduced motion on their machine or on the browser, it's important for you to respect that. So all you do is wrap your tag, whatever animation you're speaking of, like this scroll behavior, and now set this to initial. And that way, if somebody changes those settings on their machine, it'll jump like we had it originally, and it'll ignore this scroll behavior smooth. All right, the next thing we want to do is actually add some kind of padding up top here. So when we scroll, it doesn't scroll and cover the text we're trying to scroll to. So we can come in here and say scroll padding top. We could add something like, I don't know, 15 rem, so something ridiculous. And now when I come in here and I click, it'll actually scroll and leave a bunch of space up top here. Now, we can do one better. What if we were to add this as a CSS variable? Come in here and say root, and let's call it something like nav height. And this is how you do a CSS variable, and then you just set it to whatever, like 15 rem. We'll come down here to this scroll padding top and say var nav height. And now as we change this, anywhere this is referenced will update automatically for us. So if we come in here and jump again, it should stay just the same. Now notice, watch this text. As I make this smaller here, you'll notice that eventually that text jumps down. And now this 15 rem looks really, really big. Imagine this being on a mobile device. You can imagine that that text might actually, if I pull this all the way up here, this text itself might actually almost be off the page, or certainly like in the middle of the page. So perhaps we can shorten this when the nav height has changed. So let's go one more step and mess with JavaScript. What we can do is anytime the window itself gets resized, we can actually update this CSS variable right here. Let's come over here. We're going to need a few things. First of all, let's go ahead and write an event listener on the window. So this event listener we're listening for is called Resize. When we've resized the window at all, we want to run a function. The function we're going to run we'll just call set nav height. And now let's come up this way and let's write the function. So say function set nav height. The first thing we need to do is to grab whatever the nav element is here. Now for me, I'm just going to name it nav and say equal query selector, and we'll just grab the nav tag itself. Secondly, we need to grab the root where we created that variable. So we say const root document.querySelector, and then we'll just grab the root. Now I noticed something on both of these that I messed up. I need query selector, not query selector all. Now all we have to do is every time the window gets resized, we can update this variable on the root. So we'll say root.style.setProperty. The property we're setting here in quotation marks is nav height. That's what we just created. And we're going to set it after placing a comma to whatever we want. Well, what we want to set it to is this nav height itself. So if we add backticks here, we can add this E6 template string and actually just reference the nav, but we don't just want the nav, the actual element, we want its client height. Now that will just give us pixels, or that will just give us numbers. We want to actually get pixels. So we'll come in here and add px for pixels. And now let me jump over this way to the elements. And notice as I move this, if we're working correctly, you can see this nav height is updating automatically. So right now it's staying at 83 because nothing has changed. Once the font jumps up and makes the whole nav bar bigger, it jumps to 104. And we can use that to offset the actual scroll behavior. If I refresh this page, you'll notice nothing has happened when I first load. So in addition to setting an event listener on the resize, we can also set it on the DOM content loaded. And now when I refresh, you'll notice that it updated that variable right away before we did anything else. So either where it's at, or if somebody resizes it, like on a tablet, if they turn it or something like that, you'll notice that any time that shifts, it'll actually be running our script here, set nav height, anytime they resize their window. And now when we jump down here, you see, oh, now that may not quite be enough. That's okay. No worries at all. We can just come in here and say we want the nav height maybe ×2. Let's jump back this way, jump down here, and you notice now it says 208. We get smaller, we go to like a mobile version, and we come back here and we jump, and now it's up top there. So maybe we want to see something like 1.5, make it a little bit closer. And now it says 120.4.5. Jump in here. That looks just about right. So now it looks great on mobile. If you zoom out all the way and you click on this now, it should jump you down. It looks great on desktop. So you can update CSS variables with JavaScript. So those are a few steps we can take. First of all, adding scroll behavior. Second, adding that padding top. And third and finally, updating a CSS variable as the client height adjusts, as people change devices or as they resize the document itself. If you like these kind of shorter videos where I'm just showing you one thing you can do, let me know in the description. Certainly like the video, subscribe for more content like this. I'm usually doing longer JavaScript project tutorials, and so if you're interested in that kind of thing where I kind of talk you through why I'm doing what I'm doing, please subscribe so you don't miss any of that. Well, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will catch you next time. Happy coding.